Welcome to Mindful Pilates. Today we are going to focus on building strength in the upper back, arm strength, side to side strength building awareness, and feeling into it all. Let's begin with a little movement. Let's let ourselves flow. Good. Jory's coming, and George. And we'll just let ourselves sway. Dynamic movement on a chillier day is a nice way to start, because we get the body a little warmed up and we just let ourselves sway and swing. And then we may want to float out to the side and let the arm to the side float out. So left arm to the side and right arm to the front and vice versa. And we just move with the swing. And we may lift the foot off the floor and point the toe. Hi, Tom. Good to see you today. And we just allow for the dynamic movement. Now remember, you could take the dynamic movement slower. You don't have to do the movement big. And we want to stay within a decent range of motion. So we begin by feeling into the movement. Like as we swing, do we tend to lean way over? And then the opposite side body has to work too hard? Or can we stay somewhat upright with the heart and lengthen skyward? Remember, you have a choice in your relationship with gravity. You can be a ton of bricks, or you can be an Arctic tern. I would choose the Arctic tern here. Let your bones be hollow and your body light, and let yourself float up and float up. Ooh, we have two George Morgans. Fluid. And then land your feet and let the arms circle up and circle down. And if that hurts in your shoulders, then just circle the shoulders. See how I can move my torso in the circle? I could just move the torso here. Or I could maybe bring the elbows into it just low. Or I could bring the hands up and have bent elbows and not circle the shoulders too high. Or I could lengthen the arms and stretch. The biggest range of motion is not the best. The best is what feels fluid and like it's stretching you out in your body. We want to create space in the body. And then the arms come down and they swing the other way. Maybe it's just the shoulders. Maybe we all like to feel into different options. Maybe it's the hands with the elbows, but the elbows don't go higher than the shoulders. Maybe it's just hands up a little above the head with bent elbows. And maybe it's a full stretch. Feel into what's right for your body. And then decide as you're moving here, is it a day where I want to bring in hand weights or not? And if it is, you can lift up your hand weights. And if it's not, you'll get great benefit without them. And let's come in and gently march. Hand weights are not required. Think what you're doing that benefits the body right here as you march. You're inviting the lymph to pump through the body because you're moving. The lymph system doesn't have a heart pump. So we move the lymph with the movement of our body. 40% of your fluids in your body are lymph, and they're there to cleanse the body of viruses, dead cells, debris, bacteria. So we march and we move the lymph, and the cleaning system works inside the body. And then we pause the legs and float the arms out to the side and float them down. If that doesn't feel good in your shoulder, don't do it. Or do it with hand weights, do it lighter. Lift to one toe and lower to the other toe and lower. Remember your relationship with gravity. See if you can float the bones. And maybe you lift the knee and lift the knee. And make sure that your over-efforting self isn't the main guide of the practice, but instead the conscious self that wants to feel into your body as your guide. Whew. That's some good work for the wings, isn't it? Try to lift the wings from beneath instead of pulling them up with your upper trap. And then release. Let your hands lightly figure eight in front of you. And the figure eights can come a little higher. Now, if you're doing this with hand weights, really secure your stability in the central spine. So you may draw energy in from the front of the navel and lift and lengthen the spine up a little bit to stabilize. You may take an inhale and exhale through pursed lips to make sure your transverse abdominis is turned on. We want to be consciously activating. Now, if you come into a gentle twist, you take a much smaller range of motion if you're using hand weights. Okay? And you may let the hand weights rise up in front of you and float back down and rise up. And if you have your hands and you aren't using the weights, you may have more freedom of movement. You may be able to find more fluidity today. So you choose which practice is best for you in this given moment. And then let's just bicep curl the arms up out of our way. Feet outer hip distance wide. Let's come into figure eighting the hips. And just hold the hand weights up by the shoulders. And figure eight the hips. Good morning, hips. Now feel into the direction you're taking your figure eight and ask yourself, how would I do the opposite? And come into the opposite figure eight. Exercising the brain a little bit. Fluid movement and breath. Good. And then come back to center. Release your hands, palm facing forward, broad across your shoulder girdle, and lift to one toe. And release. And lift to the other toe. Now come into your awareness of feeling the back body. And feel your shoulder blades wide on the back. Try to release them broad beneath the neck. And then notice where you're carrying your head in space. Everybody take the head forward and the shoulders forward a little. Ooh, feel the pressure that puts on the low back and the back of the shoulder girdle. Now draw your eyes back in their sockets. Draw your head back over the spine. And rest your head back a little. Feel those broad shoulder blades on the back. And stop the toe lifts. Look down at your feet. Heels under sit bones. Bend your knees out over your second metatarsal. And hinge forward, letting your hands come towards the floor. And lift the elbows up to the inseam of your shirt. And broaden across the front collarbones. And then straighten the arms back behind you. So these are tricep strengtheners, but they'll also get into the back body. So we bend the elbows and lower the hand weights or the hands and lift and straighten. Now, if you don't have hand weights, you can imagine you're picking a grocery bag up off the ground when you lift the hands up. Then we straighten the arms and feel for the muscles in the back of the arms working. So we lift and straighten, bend and lower. We lift and straighten, bend and lower, and lift and straighten and pause. Can you lengthen the full length of your spine? Draw energy up the front length of the spine, even through the neck. Find your shoulder blades broad on the back. And lift to one toe. Now you can stay here balanced on the one leg with the one toe supporting you, or you can float the foot off. And then lower. Lift to the other toe. Still broad across the shoulder girdle. Still strong in the back. Maybe lift the foot. Check in with which side feels stronger. Lower the foot and unhinge and roll your shoulders. Step your feet wide. Turn them out and bring your arms in front of you as your knees bend. And inhale, open your arms wide. And exhale, palms together. And inhale, open wide. And exhale together. Those of you with shoulder issues, maybe it's just a little motion down here. Okay, you find what works in your body. We inhale, open. And exhale, close. Now feel into the head of the arm bone. We don't want to bring the elbows so far back, we pop the head of the arm bone forward. Have the head of the arm bone move back with your elbows. Try to feel for that. Now open your arms and feel for your shoulder blades on the back body, long through your crown chakra. Frame your head with your arms and gently side bend. If you have osteoporosis or penia, make sure the side you're bending towards is long. Come back up. We don't want bone-on-bone compression, so you don't have to lean too far. Don't let your workaholic perfectionist self push you too hard. Let that joyful, fun-loving self come in and play and be curious and feel into the body. Shoulder blades on your back and come back up. Now exhale. As the hands come together, feel the shoulder blades wing around the rib cage. And as you open the arms, feel the shoulder blades come on the back ribs. And forward and back and forward and back. And lift your heels and lower your heels and lift your heels and lower your heels and lift the heels, straighten your arms and bend the elbows. And it's a lift and a bend and an inhale and an exhale, lifting the heels and lowering, straightening the arms and lowering, strengthening and moving the lymph. And release and straighten the legs and step your feet together and roll your shoulders. Okay, before we do the rhomboid strengtheners, let's come to our wall and let's make sure we're really open across the shoulder girdle. Bring your humerus bones to the wall. Come into your Tadasana. Now, for some of us who do have a roll forward in the kyphosis of our spine, we won't necessarily get the head of the arm bones all the way back. We won't get the head to the wall, and that's okay. We just kind of lean into it, broaden, rest the head of the arm bones back. We don't drop the elbows towards the waist or towards the hips. We keep long in the side body right up into the armpit. Imagine you have two little ocean buoys under your armpits, and they're lifting your side bodies long. Now rest the base of your skull back, your eyes back in their sockets, and float over to one leg, lift to the toe of the other, and see if you can lift the knee. So here we work on that side body strength. Hug in the banks of your river. Don't hitch and lean. Hug in the banks of your river. Press into the four corners of the standing foot. Lift through the pelvic floor and lengthen the spine. Broad across the shoulder girdle. The humerus bones pressing gently back strengthens the back body. Release the lifted leg. Sway to the other side. Find the banks of your river. Lift through the pelvic floor. Lift the knee. Broad across the pelvis and the shoulder girdle. Strong into the four corners of your foot. Try not to hitch the body. Try to hug in the banks of your river and lengthen. And step down. Sway to the other side again, come to the toe. Now you could stay on the toe, you can lift the knee, or you can straighten the leg. Keep resting the head back, shoulder girdle broad. Press down into the four corners of the standing foot. Bend the knee, release the foot and sway to the other side. Broad across the shoulder girdle. Press gently back with the arm bones. We're strengthening the back body, opening the front body. Lift the knee if you want to. Straighten the leg if you want to. Really find that hip ring, the banks of your river. Lift through the pelvic floor and see if you can grow the spine. And bend the knee and release. Now, step away from the wall and roll your shoulders. And then just pause in your Tadasana and bring your fingers to the neck, the inner inch of your neck crease. And I want you to pretend like you're a little bird, a phalarope. You can look these up online and see if you can watch them when they move. They take their kind of this part of their neck forward and then they hug it back. Okay, like that. Okay, so I want you to try that for a moment. Take the hyoid bone forward and then draw it back. And the hyoid bone forward and draw it back. And forward and back. Let it rest back. Now reach your other hand behind your head, index finger and thumb at the base of your skull, and lift and rest the head back. And notice how your neck crease deepens a little and smiles. We want to let the head rest back, but we want to keep a natural curve to the cervical spine. So we rest the head back and we have the curve to the neck and we release the arms and stand in our Tadasana. Now we're going to keep working on this hyoid bone resting back as we bring the heels back to the wall and we open our fingernails to the wall and we become the prow of a ship. So broad across your collarbones, find your shoulder blades on your back body broad and lift the heart center as you root into your heels. Check in that you don't hyperextend your knees. We're not over flaring the front ribs. We're staying strong between ribs and hip pointers. But we're broad across the chest and the hands are down low by the hips. We're pressing them back. Like imagine the prow of the ship. Your heart is leaning forward into the waves, into the wind. Your hyoid bone, though, is resting back. Your eyes are resting back. Look up at the mountaintop. Lift the base of the skull. Feel the shoulder blades strong on your back. And release. And roll your shoulders. Come to standing beside your wall. And have your arm in its robot arm position, a 90-degree angle at the elbow. Broad across your shoulder girdle. Feel that strong back body. Lean into your heels. Feel your backside. Root your tail. Now press the arm against the wall into the wall and feel how the opposite foot presses into the floor. Press both sides. Now imagine that there's a wall on the other arm and press that arm into it and ground the foot closest to the wall. Open across your chest, activating the muscles in the back body and arms, activating your cross myofascial slings. Make sure you're not hyperextending your knees and really press both arms, both feet. And release. And roll your shoulders and turn around. Press the next side into the wall. You're standing in a Tadasana. You're not having to lean over into the wall. Press the arm with your collarbones open and shoulder blades strong on the back and feel the opposite foot engage. Make sure you're pressing into the four corners of the feet. Now, if you know your pelvic alignment pattern and you tend to throw your hips forward or back, try to find your neutral. Press that arm into the wall, feel the opposite foot. Now imagine the arm on the inside having a wall as well. Press into your imaginary wall, activate the other foot. Ooh, yeah. Feel into that pressure both directions, down into both feet. Broad across your shoulder girdle. Broad in the back. The hyoid bone is resting back. The phallorope is not sticking its beak forward. Yeah, beautiful. Okay, and release. Good. Come, either pick up your hand weights again or don't. And now we're going to do our rhomboid strengtheners. So bring your hands to either side of your hips, broad across your collarbone. So it's important that the humerus bones are not forward like this. Okay, broad across. Now lift the heart and root evenly into both feet. Imagine the walls and press your shoulders out towards the walls a little bit. And then lifting the heart, take the head of the arm bone and the wrist back without flaring your ribs. And then come forward and take it back and forward and back and forward. We're getting into the rhomboids here. Back and forward. Back and forward, back and forward, back and hold. Root down into the heels. Root the tailbone as your third leg of the stool and live in your back body for a moment. Lift the low rib ring. Feel into the shoulder blades, broad and strong on the back. Now feel into the front ribs. They aren't flaring forward. They're connected to your hip pointers and your square is intact. And release. And roll your shoulders. Okay. Open your arms to the height of wings. Now it's very important you don't make this movement too large. Okay. So we lift the arms. Those of you who can't lift that high, just have your wings low. Now you're going to take the wrist back, but you're not going to teeter-totter the arm bone and pop the head of the arm bone forward. So root into your feet. Broad across your shoulders. Take the wrist and the head of the arm bones back and come forward and back and forward. Feel for the muscle around the lower edge of your shoulder blade and between your shoulder blades. Feel for those muscles working. We're trying to wake up your rhomboids, your mid and lower traps with these exercises. Head rests back, eyes rest back in their sockets. It's a small motion. Head of the arm bones and wrists slightly back and forward and back and forward and back and hold. Lengthen across your arms. Lift through the crown chakra and release your arms and roll your shoulders. Okay, let's put down the hand weights and let's come into that awareness with the TheraBand. So if this is hard on any of you with shoulder issues, just go light, visualize, and breathe. Broad across your collarbones, shoulder blades flat on your back body, root into the four corners of your feet. Now, if you know you throw your pelvis forward or you stick your hind end back, then try to bring your pelvis underneath your circle of your ribs. Now draw the hands back, draw the heads of the arm bones back, and press the TheraBand across your front thighs. Now really broaden across your collarbones. Do this without jutting your chin forward in effort. Let the hyoid bone rest in and up. If you want to put effort into resistance, root into your feet and lengthen the spine. Hug in the banks of your river. Now take an inhale and look out over your right shoulder. Exhale to center. And inhale left. And exhale to center. And inhale right. And exhale to center. And inhale left. And exhale to center. And hold the arms broad at the collarbones, the shoulder blades. And release and roll your shoulders. All right. Release the TheraBands and roll one shoulder up, down, and back, and then the other. And reach the elbow and stretch, pointing the opposite toe if you can as you stretch across the body. And then open your wing and open your wing. So we just strengthened the back and the arms. Now we're reminding the myofascial network that we want it to stay open. And inhale, reach for the sky. And root your tailbone. And interlace, well, let's bring just one hand to the back of the head and the other hand on top of it, like this. And open your elbows wide. Now press your head back into your hands. Gently lift the base of the skull. Hyoid bone rests back, tailbone grounds. Press your head back into your hands. And we hopefully can disengage the upper trap and work the mid and lower trap. Press the head back. Elbows wide. Fluid breath. If this isn't possible for you with your shoulders, you can have your arms down here. I'd put the palms back, press the hands back, and just press back like we were earlier. Imagine you still have the TheraBand in your hands, broad across your shoulders. Now, release the elbows forward around your head, interlace your fingers, and lift the base of the skull. And root your tail, and lift the low back rib ring, and lift the heart. Come into your standing back bend. Really traction the base of the skull. And then come back up to standing. Release your arms wide and float to one toe. And lift the knee. And draw a circle. 2, 3, and step down. Really feel for your shoulder blades on your back here. Lift to the other toe. Let the shoulders help you find balance. And you can circle without lifting the toe off, or you can lift the knee. 2 and 3, and step down. Now turn your palms forward. Really feel for those hands of the shoulder blades on your back. Lift to a toe. Take the knee out, and we'll circle the other way. In. 2 and 3, and step down. Lift to the other toe. Open the knee. Hug in the banks of your river, and circle. 2, 3, and step down. and release your wings and roll your shoulders. And let's come down onto our mats. Okay, have your ball, blocker ooh, and rest your head back. Rest your arm bones back like we did against the wall. Come into robot position with your hands, elbows at a 90-degree angle. Rest your head and hyoid bone back and check in that your gaze is perpendicular to the floor. Press the whole length of your humerus bones back. Maintain your lumbar curve and float one leg to tabletop. Float the foot down, landing light as a feather, and float the other leg up. So you're working across your back body as you press the arm bones back. Please don't press at 110% of effort. See if you can find about 60% of effort and sustain it as we float the foot up and float it down, keeping the knee close to a right angle. If you need a folded blanket under your sacrum, put it there. Float one leg to tabletop, ground through the arm bones. Float the other leg up to join. Now bring your heels together, knees as wide as your shoulders, and toe dip at this angle. And bring the heels heel to heel. Toe dip the other foot. The knee stays close to a right angle and you're moving from the hip. Can you stay broad across your shoulder girdle, grounding back in your arm bones? This is really good work for the upper back. Fluid breath. It's also a stretch across the front chest. So we're balancing ourselves back into postural alignment if we're out. Come back up and hug the knees together. Open the heels as wide as your sit bones. Flex the foot and toe dip, or heel dip. Heel dip your heel and come back up. Keep your knee at a right angle. Please don't touch the floor. Stay focused on the upper body grounding you back. Stay focused on keeping your neutral lumbar curve and your connection between your low ribs and your hip pointers. And then come up and bring your hands to the front of your femur bones, fingers up. Keeping your neutral curve, press your hands into your femurs and hug your femurs towards your chest. Press and pull, press and pull. Take a few fluid breaths here. Now remember, you're not working at 100% of effort. You're working at maybe 60% of effort. Can you still rest your collarbones broad? Fluid breath. Strengthening the internal core. And then hug the knees into your chest. Circle the knees wide and back together again. Good morning, hips. We want that synovial fluid flowing. We want open myofascia. Take your circles the other way. And hug the right leg in and lengthen your left leg out at your 45-degree angle. Now hug in the banks of your river. Maybe there's a gentle lift into the body from the pelvic floor and nod your nose a little towards your mouth. Think of almost lifting the head from the hairline and only lift off 50% of the weight. And switch, and switch, and switch. Hug in the banks of your river. And switch, and switch, and switch, and switch. And hug both legs in. And reach your hands and feet for the sky. Zip up your inner thighs and hug the heels together. Take the wrists away from the ankles. And circle the arms and hug the knees in. Reach out to your point of control. Keep your neutral lumbar curve. Remember that you don't have to lengthen the legs in this one all the way out if it feels like it's compromising your spine. We lengthen the legs if we can to get vastus medialis in some of the exercises. We reach and hug and inhale and exhale and one more. Reach and hug. Now take the right leg overhead, lift up your hands towards the ankle and gently pulse, pulse, and switch. Pulse, pulse. Nod your nose towards your mouth and almost lift the head from the hairline. 50% of the weight comes off. Don't lift the head. Even those of you who know you can, feel into those front neck flexors lengthening. We're trying to release and lengthen the muscles at the back of the neck. Lift, almost lift from the hairline. Pulse, 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 pulse. And bring your legs together and rest your arms and bend your knees. Broad across your back body. Ground your shoulder blades and toe dip one foot and come up and inhale the other. Now the palms are up and the arms, the wings are wide. They're grounding you. You're still anchoring back that low rib ring. That doesn't mean it's on the floor. It just means it's stabilizing you. Now, some of you may want to toe dip both toes. Please don't try to reach for the floor either way, because that just causes rebounding, and then you're using momentum instead of strength. We're building strength here. Hug in the banks of the river. Feel into your body. Ground with the shoulders in the back. And then come back up and float your hands in behind your head, one on top of the other. And let's switch which hands on top. And exhale, lift your right elbow, lengthen your right leg and pause. Feel that right shoulder lifting the rib cage. And switch. Feel the shoulder lifting the rib cage. And switch, and switch. Reach the elbow up to press a button overhead. Reach the toes out to press a button long. We keep the spine long for the safety of the spine. We rest the hyoid bone in and the head back into the hands, and we work from our obliques. Yes, good morning, obliques. Strong shoulders. And come back to center. Release the head and float one foot to the floor and then the other. Press your pillow out. Bring your robot arms back and lift your pelvis. Now, lengthen along your arm bones, broaden across your shoulders, and gently ground back. And see if you can lift the heart slightly higher. Lengthen out through the knees a little more. Now hug your sit bones together and relax them apart. And hug them together and relax them apart. Stay strong in the backs of your arms. Stay strong in the back body, lifting you as you wake up your glutes, hugging the sit bones and releasing, hugging and releasing, hugging and releasing, hugging and holding. Now pulse your pubic bone skyward. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and hold. Lengthen your tailbone towards the backs of your legs and lift the heart center. Broad across your shoulders. Take a few three-dimensional breaths here. Fill the whole circumference of your torso as the arms work to keep you lifted in your bridge. And then release your pelvis to the floor. Take your feet as wide as your mat and open your wings, palms up, and let your knees travel to the left into a twist. Reach the right knee down the mat, stretching the psoas pathway. Now, take your left ear towards your left shoulder in a side bend of the neck, and then turn the head gently to look out over the right hand. You don't have to twist far. Fluid, three-dimensional breath. Feel into what stretch. And come back through center to the other side. Now, when you have the head up, look straight up, and then side bend the neck, ear towards the right shoulder, and then turn the head to the left. This will give you more room in the cervical spine. It helps you align for the twist. Reach through the left knee. Breathe into the whole circumference of the torso. Invite the breath to stretch the body from the inside. And release back to center. Bring in your ball block or oof underneath your sacrum. Arms in your robot position. Draw your right knee into your chest and point your right toe towards the sky. Now, if you don't have that flexibility, it's fine to keep the knee bent. Broad across your shoulder girdle, strong into the arms. Plant the left foot onto the floor and lift the right foot towards the sky. So you're going to lift up almost off your prop and then release back down. The prop is there to help keep us honest. We don't just lift the side of the leg that's working. We lift the pelvis as evenly as we can. We lift and lower and lift and lower and lift and lower, strengthening one side of the lower body. Try to stay broad across your shoulder girdle. Yes, as you press the left foot into the floor, you may feel the right shoulder engaged for balance. You may feel the left shoulder engaged to help with the lift. Now lift slightly and try to find the connection between your left shoulder and your right lifting buttock. And release and flex your foot and lower your heel long and then point the toe and lift. How far down towards the floor you go is your choice. Some of you will be able to press into the standing foot and lift off the prop while you do this work. Let the prop support you if you need it as you build side body strength. Now lift back up and rest the pelvis, bend the knee, and step the foot down. Nod your head no. Nod your head yes. Find your neutral gaze, gaze perpendicular to the floor. Hug in the banks of your river. And lift the left leg, left toe pointing up or left knee pointing up. Ground the four corners of your right foot, your arms, and lift and lower and lift and lower. Strong across the whole shoulder girdle and back body. We're strengthening the upper back. We're strengthening the lifting leg glutes. And we're strengthening our awareness of keeping the pelvis symmetrical for our SI joints. Now see if you can lift and hold. Fluid breath, strong arms, wide back. And then release your pelvis and rest and take a three-dimensional breath. And then flex the foot and lower the heel and point the toe and lift. And just do this a few times while your pelvis is resting on the block, all of you. But think, can I hug in the banks of the river even here to keep myself stable so I'm not flopping? And then if you'd like to, press into your standing foot and lift as you do this work. Strengthening one side of the lower body, strengthening the upper back. And lift up and release the pelvis onto the ball and bring the foot to the floor. If you're on a ball, you can gently rock your pelvis side to side. If you're on the block, just rest and breathe deep into the pelvis. Now, again, ground the arms back and float one leg into tabletop and the other to join it, and straighten the legs towards the sky. Lengthen up the inseam of the legs. Hug the heels together. Make your legs into one mertail. Now, split the mertail and take your feet to the outer sides of the mat and lower the feet and bring the heels together and come up in a circle. Today, as you do these circles, please pay attention to keeping your gaze perpendicular. Your collarbones broad and the head of your arm bones resting back. Stay aware of the low ribs reaching for your hip pointers, even as the shoulders work. Now bring the feet up the midline and go down the midline, open and lift back up. Strong and broad across the back body. Strong and connected from front lower ribs to hip pointers. We support the moving legs. And bring the feet together and take the right foot overhead, left foot long, and flex and point, flex and point. Arms still active. Switch sides. Flex and point, flex and point, flex and point. Switch sides and come right into riding your bicycle. fluid breath. So depending on where we put our concentration, we can really work different parts of our body until we come into whole body awareness. So today, keep your attention at your neutral cervical curve of your neck, at your gaze perpendicular to the floor, at your shoulders and arm working. And bring the legs together, one foot to the floor and then the other. Lift up off your prop and release your pelvis to the floor for somatic walking. And walk and release. Now try somatic walking of the shoulders. As the right hip lifts, let the right shoulder lift. And just let that one side of the body rock. Just a little stretch and relax across the shoulders. And then walk the soles of your feet together and let your knees open wide. And if it's okay in your shoulders, bring your arms up into a cactus position and rest in your goddess pose. Deep and fluid three-dimensional breath. Invite your eyes to rest back in their sockets. Your jaw to relax. The muscles at the base of the skull to relax. At the top of the shoulders to relax. Breathe yourself wide. Breathe deep into the three dimensions of your spine. Fluid breath. Now bring your knees together and your arms back down and roll over to your sides and come up onto hands and knees. And inhale a cow and exhale a cat. And inhale a cow and exhale a cat. Now, come back to your neutral spine and take your left fingertips out and lift the left shoulder blade onto your left rib cage. Activate your fingers of your right hand into the mat to support a lifting palm and carpal tunnel arch. And release the left hand and float the right fingertips out, right shoulder blade onto the back. Make sure you're not lifting the wrist higher than the shoulder. Focus on integrating the shoulder blade onto the back body. And release. Now take the left fingertips out, and you can either just lift the arm or lift the left fingertips and your right shin. Doggy at the fire hydrant. Connect lifting shoulder to lifting hip pocket. And exhale, lower the shin, lower the fingers, and inhale, lift them again. And exhale, and inhale. And exhale, and inhale, and pause, long spine, and release. Take your right fingertips out, and either lift just the arm or the arm and the shin, and lower, and lift, and exhale, and inhale. Finger pads active into the mat, lowering and lifting. And lift and hold. Feel into what's working. Can you lengthen your spine? And release. And inhale your cow. And exhale your cat. And right here in tabletop, walk your hands around to the right. And reach the left fingertips a little farther forward and rest into the left side body, like you're bringing it a little down towards the floor, and breathe into the stretch. And then come back up and walk around to the left and reach the right hand a little farther forward. Maybe you put a little bend into the left elbow and bring the right side body slightly towards the floor and breathe into the stretch. And notice if there's a different side to side. Fluid breath. If there is a tighter side, come back to that side after class. And come back to neutral. And reach for a bolster and a block if you have one. If not, you could use a folded blanket. If you have a bolster, that's best. And you can even do this work from the floor. So those of you who don't have props with you because you're traveling or whatever, you lay on the floor with just a little blanket or towel under your forehead. So this is the Chaturanga Salabhasana work we often do in yoga, but today we're going to do those rhomboid strengtheners instead. So come to forehead on your block or on your towel if you're laying on the floor or on a folded blanket. Whatever you're laying on, the bolster should support your lowest ribs, but your breast can hang out over the top. Your chest can hang out over the top of the bolster. Pubic bone grounds, tailbone reaches for your heels. And you lift from underneath the navel. Feel for the front spine being long even through the neck. And bring your hands back to your sides, palms facing your hips, thumbs towards the floor. Broaden across your collarbones. This is the same exercise we just did earlier standing, where we draw the wrist back and the head of the arm bones back. And then release the arms slightly towards the floor and draw the arms back and release and draw the arms back and release. The neck stays long and in neutral and the motion isn't that big. If you get this motion down and you feel like you're doing it in healthy alignment, you could add light hand weights. I used to have my yoga students in Alaska bring cans of beans to the gym, and we'd use those as our hand weights here. So you just wrap your hands around your beans and you'd lift and lower and feel for that work between your shoulder blades. You'd start with a very light weight. Now relax your hands to the floor. You can either continue with that exercise or take your wings wide, palms down, come on to fingertips. Lift the head of the arm bone broad across your shoulder girdle. And remember, we're not going to float the wrist higher than the shoulder. We lift the wrist and the head of the arm bone and release the fingers towards the floor and lift and lower and exhale and inhale. And whenever you've had enough, you just stop and rest. Take a look at those of you I can see. Yeah, beautiful, Evan. Yeah, really trying to find the lift as much as you can from the head of the arm bone, not the wrist. Yes, good, Jonathan. Long spine. Good, John. Maybe not quite as high with the wrist. Really try to find the shoulder blade. Yeah, beautiful, Jory. Good, Kathy. Still reaching long through the tailbone. You're lifting at the navel. Beautiful. Okay. And now bring your hands under you in a low plank position. So your forearms are on the floor. Your elbows are under your shoulders, toes turned under, and press down into your arm bones to lift. Pelvis, navel, and low ribs. Imagine there are helium balloons under each, lifting you. There's a little helium balloon under your neck and lengthen from crown chakra through to your pelvic floor. Lengthen from the base of your skull to your heels. Lengthen your tailbone towards your heels. This is great work for building bone density in the upper body. Your humerus bone is definitely working here to support your body weight. So are the bones, the little bones in your feet. Now release back down onto your bolster. And reach your hands wide in a Y, fingertips on the floor. Tailbone still reaching for the heels. Lift up into a baby cobra. And then release back down. You can stay with the baby cobra or bring your hands in under your shoulders and inhale into a cobra. Lengthen the front body. Now we're stretching that psoas pathway that we worked with our series of 5. Breathe deep into the belly, into the connection, inner thighs through pelvis to spine. Breathing into your psoas. And then lengthen the psoas back down and bring your forehead down. Bring your hands beside your hips, palms down, thumbs out. Broad across your shoulder girdle. Inhale, lift your heels, lift the base of your skull. Lift across your collarbones. Broad across your shoulder girdle. Pubic bone rooting, tailbone reaching for your heels. We strengthen the back body. Fluid, 3-dimensional breath in Salambhasana. And then exhale, release, and rest. So you can stay with that Salambhasana one more time if you don't want to come into a twisting action. If you're on the floor, do the Salambhasana one more time. But if you're on a bolster, you can try this twist to build awareness in the back body. You'll either float your hands back by your hips, palms down, thumbs out, those of you with shoulder issues, or if your body allows for it, come into your cactus position. Really lift the base of the skull, lift the front of the neck, and lower your left forearm towards the floor as you lift the right towards the sky. Come back to center and lift the opposite side and back to center. It's a gentle twist. Guide it from the shoulder, not the wrist. Yeah, good, Evan. Keeping the back of the neck long. Yeah, good. Yes. Fluid breath. Good, Susie. Yeah. Really nice, Kathy. Okay. Make sure you're stabilizing at the pelvis. So don't roll yourself off your bolster. It's not a big motion. You're trying to get the motion in the upper back. And release. And roll yourselves back into a supported child's pose or into a child's pose. And take a few breaths. Hopefully we'll all be very aware of our back bodies after this class, our upper backs. Hopefully they won't be too tired. Let your hands come forward if you'd like, or just rest beside your bolster if you're still on your bolster. And you can rock a little side to side. If it's hard to be in child's pose, feel free to come into half dog with your hands on a piece of furniture. Fluid breath. And then if you'd like a side body stretch, remove the bolster. Reach your arms forward and walk your hands around to the right and breathe into the left side body. And rest the left side body towards earth. And invite it to stretch open. Let the breath stretch you open from the inside. And then walk your hands around to the other side. Stretching the right side body. Fluid breath. Every time we rest into a child's pose, we're doing a hip opener. Breathe into your pelvis, into your hips, into the opening of your shoulders and armpits. And come back to your neutral. And hands at least as wide as your shoulders, each finger pad engaged, lifting the center palm. Roll up into your downward dog. Start with knees bent. Press into those finger pads to lift the center palm, to lift the carpal tunnel, to lengthen up the arms to your armpits. broad across your shoulder girdle. Let the head float a little above the humerus bones. Long neck. And then slowly take your femur bones back. Lengthening the spine, make sure taking the femur bones back or the heels down does not bring you out of your neutral lumbar curve. Likewise, don't sag your belly towards the floor. Each finger pad still active, each thumb. Walk your dog. Fluid breath. And then walk your feet forward and bend your knees. If you'd like to come into a forward fold, you can rest your torso on your femur bones. Some of you will be able to lift your sit bones. Fluid breath. And then bend your knees and reach your hands for the sky. And exhale your hands through your hearts. Mountain pose. Feel into the body now. Each leg. And from each heel, feel up to each hip. And from each hip, feel up to each low side rib. And from each low side rib, lift the ring underneath at the center chest. This ring intersects with the lower tips of your shoulder blades. So on the back body, feel for the low tips of your shoulder blades and find a lift there. Let your collar lift and your superhero eye mask band lift. And let that eye mask band lift you skyward in an anti-gravity force. Let your eyes rest back and your hyoid bone rest back. And turn your palms forward, thumbs out. Find your shoulder blades on the back body. Breathe, a growing ball of energy at your heart center. Breathe warmth up from the center of the earth. Breathe prana, life force energy into the body, and on the exhales, invite it to circulate through you. Through the shoulders, the neck. Now gently bobble your head at the top of the shoulders. Let it bobble. And then gently lean your left ear towards your left shoulder and reach the right arm out and back slightly. Let your gaze look towards the floor. Come back to neutral and release this side, taking your right ear towards your right shoulder. Left arm palm up, thumb slightly back. Maybe it feels good to have your gaze turned towards the floor. Breathe into any tight muscles. And release to neutral. And draw a circle with your nose. And let it get larger and larger. And take your circle the other way. All the while, your shoulder blades are lovingly holding your back body. And come to neutral. And let's inhale, draw in earth and sky. Right in to nurture and nourish us. And let's inhale in to our growing awareness with requests like feel into the body. Let's inhale into awareness of both sides and their strength and into the back body. Thank you for coming to class. I hope you have a wonderful Wednesday.